Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Golf in Society podcast. I have the great pleasure today of having a conversation with an amazing lady called Helen Williams. Helen Williams is an entrepreneur, and she's been an amazing ambassador for Golf in Society. And I hope she doesn't mind me saying that she's done some amazing fundraising efforts for our cause as well. And she's a shining example for me about successful women in business, but successful women who are great human beings as well and understand the importance of giving back to the communities in which they do business. So without further ado, I'd like to say hello, Helen, and welcome.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for inviting me onto your podcast, Anthony. Intriguing as always, and very, very kind of you and generous to say those words. I will always remain an ambassador for Golf in Society. I'm a huge, huge believer in the impact that you deliver into our communities, and the more and more people that get involved and actually understand how this impact can work for communities, people, loved ones, family members, or whatever near them, the better, because this is rolling out and it's going to be global. I just know, I can feel it in my water.
Well, coming back, I could have you on this podcast for many different reasons, but the one thing I really want to explore with you today is really women in the workforce, really. And as you know, Helen, through Golf in Society, we don't only support the people living with a diagnosis, but we also support that amazing wave of people called unpaid carers. For me, they're the unsung heroes of society. And as we all know, the caring role generally falls on the shoulders of women within a family. And as a result of that, a lot of women are lost from the workforce. They have to give up their careers of their dreams. They have to give up that sporting enjoyment, in particular golf as well. A lot of golfers leave the game that they love because they have to take over the caring responsibilities and don't have the chance to keep enjoying it themselves. So for me, I'd really like to sort of explore how we can do a better job, really, as society, as businesses, as an economy, in using all this wonderful talent that is sometimes lost from the workforce for a particular period of time. Now we get them back and engaged in jobs and meaningful, rewarding careers that they can enjoy once those caring responsibilities are no longer there. But I think just to sort of set a bit of context, really, in terms of, we mentioned women generally have to fulfill that caring responsibility more than men. Well, it's about a split of 58% of all unpaid carers are women. But interesting enough, 1 in 7 of people in the workforce are actually juggling the career that they love, but also with a caring responsibility, which obviously brings quite a lot of stress. And there was interesting research done recently that said 75% of carers who are still working really, really worry about balancing that sort of caring responsibility with the job of their dreams. And I just to get sort of started, really, is do you think we do a good job in supporting people when these caring responsibilities unfortunately come their way?
Unfortunately not. And I think unless you have experienced it for yourself, either you've been a carer yourself or a family member, such as your mom or your sister, your auntie or whatever, has taken those roles on and been looking after a loved one within your family unit, I don't think you actually understand and appreciate how much that actually takes of a person, physically, mentally and emotionally. And I don't think there is enough regard for it. You know, you call them unsung heroes, absolutely. But put that into context over the stats that you've just shared over, you know, how vital that role is, but they've still got to continue with day-to-day business, life, juggling of a home. There could be children at one end of the spectrum that they're looking after, and then elderly or older generations within the family unit at the other end of the spectrum. And I just do not think that there is enough vocal support out there, just generally in terms of support networks, but definitely not in the workplace. And I know from individuals who I've worked with in a coaching capacity and from my own personal experience within the family as well, that you don't tend to share what's going off at home because you don't think that the workplace is the right setting for it. You don't want to be judged or penalised by it. If any of your work is slipping in terms of performance or anything like that. And so therefore it's kept as a bit of a secret burden, where actually I think that's where the opportunity can be, is to actually share it, because a problem shared is a problem halved, right? And I just think that emotional connection is where a lot of it is tripping us up in looking after the people that are essentially the support networks of community and family units.
So do you think it's something that people feel comfortable about talking to their employers about?
No, I don't. No, I don't think that I don't think it's supported. I don't think it's welcomed. I don't think that there's the well-being support with that in mind. This is not a bashing at corporate companies or anything like that, because health and well-being is very much on a lot of corporate agendas, and I know that things are dramatically changing, but I think a lot of it is a tick box exercise. I don't think there's enough in-depth understanding over what it actually should look like and what individual employees actually do need in reality.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. As you know, within Golfing Society, women are an important part of everything we do, whether that be people we support or people that are driving my business forward. You know how important some of the lead roles within Golfing Society are to me, and I've given them to some really talented individuals, and most of them are ladies and women doing great things. And interesting enough, they love what we do so much that they've got involved on their own terms with the hours that they've got available and a sort of specific brief that they can deliver for us, really. And I think that's quite interesting, in that these are very busy individuals, successful individuals, and some of them have had their main career and maybe just want to be involved in something meaningful and rewarding, and like what Golfing Society does, can see the difference that it makes, and want to step up on their own terms to actually get involved and make a difference through our social enterprise, and making our mission a reality, really. And I think that's quite interesting, because as a nation, I don't think we always see the value of 4 hours or 2 hours contributing to a great business or a great cause. We think of it in terms of a 9 to 5, really long 12, 13, 14-hour days. Well, it doesn't always need to be that to have a meaningful and long-lasting difference to a business. And I think I've found that with Golfing Society, those cameo roles, those smaller roles that fit other people's responsibilities in life, have been really successful with us. And I wonder whether that's something that maybe more organizations should be considering.
Well, where I say that organisations, are developing, even with the wellbeing agendas, obviously, there's a lot more flexibility as well. There's a lot more working from home options and that hybrid working that people are adopting, particularly after COVID and lockdown, and that change in work and facilitation over that, flexi hours, that's all contributing to allowing that. But I think I'm with you on the fact that you can get a hell of a lot done, and you can create a lot of impact in a short space of time. And I particularly champion women for this, because I think we are masters of it. If we've got a short space of time just to get our heads down and do something, execute it. If you want something done, we're doing it essentially because we've put our name to it. So I'm praising us all and patting ourselves on the back for that. Because there is a lot of stereotyping over, like what you said, particularly in the corporate world, over if you're going to be successful, you need to be the first one in the office and the last one to leave. And it's like, well, actually, no, like you just have to be really bloody good at your time management and your execution. But that's one thing. That's on the practical side of things. So then managing kind of, working hours or flexibility and things like that. So I'm all for that, definitely. I just think there is a disconnect when it comes to emotional and mental support that carers need and require, because everybody's got a breaking point. Even if they are, the great masters of time management and the executors, everybody has a limit, and we all are human. We're not robots, and that's where I think that there's a missing link there.
I think you're absolutely right there. And it's interesting because at the moment, on average, there's about 600 people a day leaving the workforce because they're taking up a caring responsibility. And when we think the majority of those are women, that's a lot of talent and expertise being lost from a workforce of key individuals on a daily basis. And I fully understand that for a moment in time, that might be the right thing for that individual to do. But I just want to explore with you about how we sort of make people realize that once that little moment in their life that's come their way to actually take up that caring role, once that's over, how we can give them a little bit more confidence that those career opportunities and rewarding job opportunities will still be there when they come out the other side of that caring role where they've had to step out of the workforce.
Will they still be there though? I think women have such a raw deal out of it, Anthony, that we are bombarded with expectation of choice of career or choice of lifestyle, i.e., are you going to be a mother? Are you going to be create a family and be at home and, develop all the family unit? And then there's a short space of time, if you do decide to have children or you don't, there's a short space of time that you can kind of like apply into your career and excel. And then unfortunately, how aging populations go and what have you, and that is just on the stereotypical timeline of life, evolution of life, of aging populations. And you've got aging parents or aunties, uncles, grandparents that you then become and are responsible for. So I just think women have such a raw deal out of it. So if then the question is about how do we get them back into that position after a stressful, really demanding time in their life of being a carer, not a mother per se at that end of the spectrum, but being a carer. I'm not wholly convinced that those positions would be available to them. Because I've not got any stats to hand right now, but I've been on many panels where we spoke about the challenges that women have, even gaining the right sort of careers or the same careers and the same level of salary and pay and reward and benefit as our male counterparts. The amount of women on boards are still of a minimum in comparison to men. So I'm not always convinced that they will be available. I would like to think that we could be that, we could be that voice of change and we could do something that is available. But I will say from personal experience, if I was still in my corporate role to what I was 8 years ago, dealing with what I'm dealing with currently, I couldn't have stuck it out in that competitive world of sales management. Absolutely not. Because you've got the challenges that are coming at you day in, day out, and you could be dealing with a relative that could be ringing you 18 times a day. How do you deal with that when you're in work? When you're in a workplace environment, you could be in front of clients, you could be delivering to the MD or something. How can you deal with that within a workplace environment? I'm fortunate that I do have that level of flexibility that you spoke about the 4 hours execution and the choices and things like that. But I've instigated that myself. But unfortunately, for the amount of women that you say, the 1 in 7 that are juggling all of this, that they're in paid employment, how can we guarantee that position would be back open and available to them?
Yeah, you're right, and I think that's fascinating, isn't it? Because you go from being an indispensable part of the team that's being one of the individuals that's created such success within an organization, and then all of a sudden, for no fault of your own, opportunities lessen, and pressures grow, and then all of a sudden you're not that cherished individual anymore. You don't feel as though you're cherished and supported anymore. So you've gone from a superstar of an organization to, in your moment of need, feeling pretty low about life and not feeling very well supported. And I think, as organizations and we and as a nation, we've got to do better there. We've got to be able to put our arms around people. We've basically got to be able to just give them that little comfort blanket, say, you know what, take the time you need, do whatever you need to do. When the moment's right, you come back, we have a conversation, and we'll chat it through. But ultimately, you've got to put that individual first and their family needs, because we all know family comes first, and things happen. And you've got to be, I believe, as a compassionate leader, you've got to be living it every day. You've got to show that, take the time, come back, tell me all about it when the moment's right, just leave it like that. And I think that's for me, that's been quite empowering to be able to say that to my team. So they come back to me when the moment's right, and they tell me why they've had to step out of the business for a particular time. And then we look at ways that they can come back into it. And I think we need to do more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got a really close friend of mine that's juggling work and elderly parents' illness and in and out of hospitals and things like that at the moment, unfortunately. But her employer is massively supportive and understanding, and like what you say, take as long as you need. And if we have a lot more of that, it does empower men or women, whoever the carer is. It doesn't have to be like the stereotypical woman's role, but just in general as an individual taking on that responsibility. We're empowering them to actually then, take the time, the space that they need without that added pressure on, because these are often circumstances that individuals are navigating their way through, that we don't have a rule book. Nobody has a rule book on how to deal with a loved one that's got Parkinson's or dementia, or everybody's learning and progressing every single day. These individuals that this impacts and families that this impacts, you never know. Every day can be something different that you're experiencing. You've got to go for research, you've got to do your own research, you care, and you've got the compassion, you're expressing your emotions with other people in the family. You're learning about yourself as well. And then you're still then juggling the household, whether you've got any children, if they're younger children or children at university, and then still having to then go into work and put that professional front on. Just that level of, like, where you say, of putting your arm around people and understanding that, I think would go a long way. And it's not just, I don't just mean a friend in work or a colleague that, gives you a support over the coffee break in the morning or puts your arm around you at the water cooler. I mean, from a corporate responsibility to actually value their workforce and give them that support. And again, what does that look like? How do we empower that and create that in a corporate environment? This is not something that any line manager can deal with and contend with. This is meaning extra resource that needs to be drawn into these organizations, specialists in that area, therapists, coaches, people that will actually keep you on track and give you that emotional and mental support, guidance, and advice. Because it is a specialist subject. We bang the drum every single day, don't we, about mental well-being and mental health. This is what it all encompasses, because unpaid carers have their mental health tested to levels that they've never experienced probably before. It's such an emotional experience that unpaid carers get themselves or become part of. That emotional attachment of loved ones and that emotional stretch that they've got of themselves, who do they then confide in? Who do they then break down in front of and share their fears and their thoughts and all the frustrations? Because frustration is a huge factor of carers. That's not something that any workplace wants to deal with. So that's why I'm saying it's not a line manager's responsibility per se. It is a specialist subject, but it is something that needs to be addressed. And I just think that is definitely, as I say, that missing link. And for people to feel supported in the workplace, to feel that their positions are then going to be open and they're still a valuable part to that team, it has to come with the investment of the person.
Yeah, I totally agree. For me, that everything is about people. It's always about putting people first, because ultimately, technology is great and technology can support us as a human race, but ultimately, Mother Nature created us human beings to sort of, to be people really, and make sure that we've got good people around us. And we always feel better as individuals when we know that we're supported by that great network of people that often unconditionally will just be there for you in your moment of need and socialize it and just give you that sort of that moment of support that you're desperate for, really. So I think putting people first is not something that we should forget about. And I think that you've really got to live it and breathe it as a leader at the moment in this nation to bring it to life, really, because it's those inspirational leaders and those emotional leaders and people that really put people first that will, I think, drive the change that we need in the workforce. I'd like to, Helen, if it's all right with you, move on to the next little bit of the conversation, which is basically, I come across a lot of carers who've had fantastic careers. And as you can imagine, a lot of the families we live with, support, they may be living with a dementia diagnosis, and they understand that it's a terminal diagnosis and that will come a moment when their loved one is no longer with us. And I think that I've noticed a lot of these people have had amazing careers. There's some fantastic talent amongst the unpaid carers that we support. And I think that through the conversations we have with them, you realise that they've still got so much to offer. And I think I was wondering how we give them the hope that come that moment when their loved one is no longer here, how do we give them the hope that there's still a chance to use that expertise and talent within the workforce?
That depends, obviously, what profession they were in previously. If you're talking about a specific expertise, such as brain surgery or something like that, that they're going back into, that's totally different. But what I would say from experience of being around carers, people within your industry, people who I'm dealing with on a day-to-day basis, is I often find that if people have had that kind of level of experience, something changes in them that they don't necessarily want to go back into that profession that they had before, and they see what gaps there potentially are, like what we spoke about, or they see kind of where they could have used an extra bit of expertise or an extra bit of resource or something, and feel that they want to go on and pay it forward and help other people. And you find yourself in terms of, when people get involved with Golf in Society, they have a personal experience with it, or they've got they're helping through their student placements, and they want to then get involved and know more and what else can they do, because it's so meaningful, fulfilling, purposeful, and it's got the people at the core. And that's not necessarily a recruitment drive for Golf in Society. But what I'm saying is, people who experience something that's very much of an emotional strain often use that as their catalyst to do something purposeful and meaningful with the rest of their life, that they can help impact others as well. Because what people who have suffered don't want to do is see other people suffer and struggle.
Totally.
And that is seen time and time again. So, and I'm a big believer of that, because you think that it's turning something quite negative into positive. The people that miss out on that is potentially then the corporates, for example, or the job placements that people aren't then necessarily returning back to. And I think the only way that people would return back to, or you've got that level of retention, and let's be clear, happiness and fulfillment in the workplace goes hand in hand with retention, right? So that has to take into consideration the length and breadth of happiness and fulfillment within an individual, inclusive of their, extra strains and challenges that they could be dealing with, such as caring for a loved one. So if you've got that level of infrastructure in place already within your organisation or your corporate setup, the likelihood of retaining that individual at the end of, like you said, the challenge comes to an end and a loved one is no longer here, and that they can feel that they can go back into their job and their career and get life back on track to a bit of normality again, for argument's sake. The chances are they're going to, if they've had that initial support and that resource there in the first place. If they've not, you see it that people then do want to go on to do something that they see as purposeful.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. It's interesting that we've got, as I say, a lot of expertise within our wave of unpaid carers that we support. And as you know, co-designing services with our beneficiaries at the heart of it is really, really important. And I found that a lot of the unpaid carers that we've supported have given their time unconditionally to get involved in designing services that are for people going through similar challenges based on their lived experience, but using their professional expertise to understand how that works, let's say within health and social care. So it's not just like taking a wild idea, it's thinking, right, I used to work in that space. I've now got lived experience of what it's like to be an unpaid carer. And they combine the two to bring all of that expertise to the design table to help us design a process, design a service, design a system with them and families like them at the heart of it. And for me, that's been so life-changing for me in terms of a leader as a social entrepreneur, but so rewarding to know that I've designed something with people at the heart of it that has had so much contribution from people who've been through it. And I love that part of what we do, is giving them that opportunity, that voice, that seat at the design table to influence and shape the future of support for families that will go through these challenges later in life. And most of those have been great women.
Yeah, well, there you are then. It's already happening. It's already working. You're already replicating that. And, that is kind of bringing in the expertise and the general lived experience together to create something positive and impactful for the rest of society. And what I will say is everybody's connected. Everybody has a network or connections and knows people. So if then there's these kind of pioneers and women that are, taking things forward and being innovative and getting involved, is they can actually then be key trailblazers and representatives and ambassadors within the community, and speak and pass that on to the next person and the next person, and draw all this popularity and reputation up even more positive. So again, like what do women always get criticized for doing the most of, or a lot of, is talking and chatting and gossiping and what have you. If we're doing it for the world of good, then we can't live to that criticism any longer. That is proof in the pudding that already works. I've seen it, and it's already happening within Golden Society.
Helen, that's great. It's been a fantastic conversation so far, and really insightful to get your thoughts on where we're at the minute, and possibly things we could do better going forward, especially as sort of organisations and leaders. I'm going to finish by asking you the $1 million question, really. And sorry for this, but it's how do you see the future of women in the workplace?
Oh, this is a tough one. Coming from an ex-corporate background to being almost 8 years as a self-employed business owner, I actually think that women, I see this on the landscape. I work with a lot of incredible business owners. I actually think that women are going to start being more and more self-sufficient. They are going to be taking the reins, taking the control, because, like I said, we get a raw deal. However which way you look at it, we get a raw deal, and we have short opportunities and windows of opportunities where we can actually then execute what you would class as being successful within a career-led environment. So I actually think that women are starting to, or will start to see, a lot more influx of self-employed business owners, pioneers of change, so that we can have that choice, because whether we like it or not, it's coming our way. You said the stats are there, the stats don't lie, the experiences don't lie. And then we've got the choice and the control over lifestyle, business, family life, and anything that, you know, we are passionate about within community, society, business world, family world, and bringing it all together. And I know, like I've said, and you know, I know personally through my choices, it's allowed me to have a lot more of that sort of holistic approach over everything. Without it, I couldn't be juggling what I'm juggling on a personal experience. And I know that fellow business owners and what have you that are struggling and having challenges in the same way have said the same. If they were in a job, they would lose their job or feel under threat from losing their job because of lack of performance, because of where they're struggling elsewhere. So the workplace either needs to change, or we will see an absolute influx of independent, self-sufficient businesswomen in the upcoming years, I believe.
Well, that's been an inspirational conversation, Matt, really. And I'm so pleased that we've got you on board as an ambassador, but more importantly than that, how you're inspiring change within the workforce and really pushing that agenda to make sure that the amazing women in the workforce at the minute get the opportunities to have futures, the lifestyles that they want on their terms. And really, we're all on this planet to have a good time. We're not here for a long time. And ultimately, it's all about that. And I think you're just a wonderful pioneer and an inspirational voice for women in the workforce. And it's been a fantastic conversation. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have.
I have. I'm very passionate about this. I mean, as you won't know, but just this week I've started, and this is my feminist hat on, and I'm on a bit of a rant now. I actually picked up a book before my holidays, and I've only just got round to reading it, and it's called "Fix the System, Not the Women." So it's very, very apt that then this podcast comes at the same time of that interview, because, you know, like I've said, I've sat on many panels, and particularly then International Women's Day and things like that for this topic. And it is something I'm passionate about. I do want to see change. But then I will say, I do know a lot of guys that are in a carer role as well, that are juggling in the same way. But back to my point of women in business being ultimately in control and driving that forward for themselves through choice. One particular personal experience that I know about, an individual guy became a carer for his mum, and he could only do that because he was in control of his own business life and managing his own time.
Yeah, you're right. It cuts both ways. But that, and just so the audience know, I didn't ask you to plug that book. And it's just weird that this.
No, definitely, just come at the same time. No plugging of books. Other books available.
This was all. We'd planned this podcast long before I knew that Helen was reading that. But that's been a great way to finish. Thank you so much for your time. You're an inspirational woman, and keep up inspiring others. And to the audience, Helen is, as I say, a great ambassador for Golfing Society. And her recent fundraising effort raised almost £1,000 for us. So while she's busy out there achieving, she's also giving back to the community and businesses that she and good causes that she really does support. So thanks for everything, Helen, and thanks for your time today.
Great stuff. Good luck with everything, Anthony.